There is a sin that humans has been committing for over thousands of years and will continue to do so as long as the human race exists. The boomers mentalities. My generation is better than your generation types of mentality. Living in their own cave, gooning about their generation is better than the younger generation all day. Back in my days, we don't watch porn on the internet all days. We just build a sex dungeon and have fun there. I'm going too far. So there's a huge drama going on between Genshin and Wuthering Waves. Maybe I'm not saying it correctly. The Wuthering Waves is too new to have any fan base behind it. So it's more like of a one-sided hatred from the Genshin fan base towards the Wuthering Waves. If I were to summarize the whole thing into one sentence, it would be the toxic part of Genshin fan base is experiencing the generation gap, but in gaming for the first time in their life. But let's just call them the Genshin boomers, because I also play Genshin for over a year and I love the game. I love the characters, love the story, love the gameplay. But as much as I love Genshin, I don't go out and knock down people's door, point at them saying that my game is better than your game, like those Genshin boomer did. And what I want to clarify is that these Genshin boomer doesn't represent the whole Genshin community. And why do I call them Genshin boomer? Because what they did is exactly the same as what boomer did to younger generation. They just pick random thing that young people do and say it's bad, like video games cause violence. They are lazy and they are not hardworking. They even shit on young people through the mainstream media, just like how these Genshin boomers do it on the Reddit and the Twitter. So let me explain the whole thing. Wuthering Wave is a newly released game that was just released less than 3 weeks ago. And there's a lot of element in the Wuthering Waves that is similar or even identical to the Genshin, like the combat system and the exploration. Even the way they monetize the game is pretty much the same, whether it's on Battle Pass system and how they charge the player monthly. So there's a lot of hate and criticism and niche picking from these Genshin boomers to the Wuthering Waves. And copying is not something new that happened in the gaming industry. It happens countless of times, like how Fortnite copied PUBG, and how Overwatch copied Team Fortress. And even in Genshin, people claim that it's the copy of The Legend of Zelda. If there were any issue for copying, then these multi-billion company would have taken this to the court already. And what makes this even funnier is that the company behind the Genshin, MiHoYo, is actually chill with the new game. Their employee even play the Wuthering Waves on the live stream and have fun with it. So basically, these Genshin boomer are white knighting the multi-billion company for no good reason. The company didn't ask them to do it. Some of them even go as far as making up misinformation, like the accusation about botting, leaking phone numbers in real life address through emails of the player who issued the compensation in Japan for the mistranslation of the weapon back then. And that thing was debunked pretty much on the same day. And some rumors about this sketchy exclusive contract for the voice actors and the live streamers, just to justify the hate for Wuthering Waves. And all of them are beautifully debunked by this particular YouTuber, Mujin. So yeah, go give him a subscribe. And yeah, please subscribe to me. Drop a like and comment. Well, you have to understand that Genshin Impact is very huge, because it's probably one of the most successful games in the history, and it only takes a small portion of the communities of bad actors in it to form a huge amount of haters to do all of these types of attacks. When it comes to internet argument, it's always the minorities that speaks extremely loud, so loud that they thought they are the majority. It's pretty much the same situation in any internet communities, whether it's politics or the drama online. Because if you're a normal person, you would have just go on with your day instead of spending all day to argue on these Twitter and the Reddit, while it's perfectly fine to have your own preference on anything, but going to the extent that making up the misinformation and spread it just to win some internet brownie points is just pathetic. These people are taking upvote like plant taking photosynthesis. They would have died without it. It is so hard to come up with something that is sadder than going on a crusade on the internet all days just to push your agenda saying that my game is better than your game aggressively with passion and do it for free. And let me tell you why. Because there are people out there who actually enjoy putting other people's down just to show that I'm better than you, to feed their ego. These kind of bad people actually exist, and it doesn't matter if the argument makes sense or not, as long as they won the argument so that they can feel good about themselves from winning an argument online. But let's take a step back and don't talk about people who take it too far. I believe that there are people out there who genuinely dislike the game even after they tried it and being too critical about it. Like this video, the Wuthering wave is a disappointment.
Being in 2024, I think it's a bare minimum standard that a story-based 3D game should understand how to have conversational manners. In short, the switching of camera angles in this game is horrendous.
In the video, he said he tried the game for over 10 hours, which is not a lot for a game like this. I think half of the takes are pretty fair, but he is also too critical about it and being too harsh on the wording. But I think people like this are perfectly fine because it is okay to have preference. But sometimes we are being too quick to judge on something. I think we need to discuss a little bit deeper about it, why our new games can be hard to accept. And I think there are two major reasons behind it. So the first one being the neuron plasticity. When you are learning new things or adapting to the new environment, it will cause some levels of discomfort and pain in the brain, a physical pain. It can happen when you are experiencing something new like cultural shock, learning a new language, or even playing a new game, which if we put into a learning perspective, it also means that you are getting out of the comfort zone because your brain needs to restructure itself to adapt to the new thing. I do think that when we are playing the new game, we also have to adapt to the new set of rules, new kinds of mechanics of the game. Like if you are moving from a classic shooter game like PUBG into the Fortnite, you wouldn't have hard times aiming and shooting, but you would have hard time literally building a wall or a high ground to get yourself into an advantageous position. Because there's no other FPS game you can just build a skyscraper within a minute. And I can see why this imposed a lot of discomfort to people who are already used to the classic shooter game. So I think the same thing also happens when people from Genshin moving towards the Wuthering waves, like this particular post from the Reddit.
To put it simply, it's fun, very fun, love the characters, swap mechanic, love the echo caching. But my biggest problem is how weightless characters feel. Like when running, they look as if a gust of wind can throw them off a cliff. There's no weight behind their movement. Fighting is fantastic due to how high speed it is, but apart from that, movement has no weight behind it.
The original videos was aimed to make fun of the cherry-picking behavior from this post, but I find the criticism is coming from a totally understandable place because you're not playing the same game, and every game has different physics. Back when I was moving from Overwatch to the Valorant and Apex, I find myself moving in those games extremely slow because they're not the same game. The only solution is maybe give it a little bit more time, like maybe a good 20 or to 30 hours of it to adapt yourself to the new rule. Then you might be able to come up with something that is more objective. I think adapting to the new game can cause discomfort, therefore mistranslated into the impression of bad experience. I think this is the mentality that we have to avoid when we are adapting to the new thing, so we don't fall into this tunnel vision of niche picking. So this is probably the first major reason. And the reason number two is that some people will be more open-minded and some people doesn't according to the Big 5 personality test, which is also totally fine. Because to be fair, at this day and age, with so many misinformation spreading around like wildfire. We can't just take everything as the face value. But when it comes to gaming experience, like everyone has very different experience in different game. So in some way, if the game fit your genre, but somebody on the internet said it's bad, then it doesn't mean that you should take it as face value. You should always try it first. Let's give you guys an example. I have always thought that the Nikkei is not really a good game because the way that Nikkei doing their marketing, they literally turned the machine gun into a twerking machine 3000. But then I ran into these videos where Tecton recommending Nikkei to hack juice, but the gameplay, the story are exceeding the expectation. I would argue that Nikkei has even better story than the Honkai Star Rail, which I also love that game, at least in terms of the element of shock and the twist and turn of the story are better than Honkai Star Rail. If it wasn't for that particular videos, I would never try Nikkei just because the bias that I have with the game. And I would have missed something really fun. I'm more certain that Nikkei is the game that I don't want to miss after I play it for a while. So back when I was playing a MMORPG game called Black Desert, the large proportion of the game is built upon the grinding. Whoever grind the most will win the game, or you have to spend disproportionate amounts of money in order to have better gear than those who actually spend a lot of time grinding. And coming from that game does give me a huge bias toward the gacha game like Genshin, because I thought gacha game is only about pay to win. And pay to win is equivalent to no gameplay, but exhibit of your wealth. And I was goddamn wrong on that. They have significantly more varieties of entertainment like the story, which is pretty much non-existent in the Black Desert. In Black Desert, you only get to play one character at a time. And even if their new class came out, you still have to grind a month or two to be able to play it. But in gacha game, you can kind of max level a characters within a day or two. But in Genshin and Honkai Star Rail, you get to play 8 characters in the same time in the challenge mode. And it's just simply more fun playing 8 characters and building them. I've been having so much fun in these type of gacha game that I feel like I've been missing out so much for sticking into one game for too long. So I think it's kind of important to try something new every once in a while, whether it's in gaming or in terms of your life. Even that means you're gonna find out that you don't actually like it, but it's still better than making decisions out of the bias from other people. Yeah, so don't judge on something too early before you try it. Like, come on, it's a game, it's a hobby, it's not a cult. If you have fun with it, you keep playing it. If you don't have fun with it, just move on to other game. You don't have to convince other people to do so. And that's pretty much it. See you guys.